Tyrese Halliburton, who the NBA has done a good job at marketing this run, but hasn't done a total great job in, I guess, making him out to be in the grand scope of the league where he stands. On the flip side, it's almost like they're force-feeding you Anthony Edwards. And Anthony Edwards is not budging. And he's not giving you moments. He's not giving you big closeout games. I mean, I'm trying to think of Anthony Edwards' huge playoff games that he's had. He was bad in that Game 7 against Denver last year, that one that they won. He was terrible against Dallas in the early part of the series in the conference final last year. And they fell down, I believe, 3-0 in that series. And he was bad in Game 4. He's 5 of 13 from the field. He was terrible in that closeout game against the Lakers in the first round. He hasn't given you a ton of opportunity to have playoff moments. But the team is pretty good. The team is deep. And they've sort of stayed afloat here. But it looks to be that they're on the outside looking in. They're dead in the water. And it's probably because the Thunder are a lot better than them. And that's true.
It was the first time the Minnesota got tested, I think, Colin, in the playoffs. I don't want to say that they had the country club treatment, but the Lakers were bad. Let's call it for it. The Lakers were bad, and the Warriors were without Steph Curry. It's a cop-out, and I know you can't stand it when I say this. The Warriors win that series with Steph. So, I think that's evident right now. They're about to get gentlemen swept. Now, I give credit
to a 70-win team.
And one for the listen. They won a game by 42 points, 143 to 101.
And they were right in the game
when
Anthony Edwards had a bad game, and they were right in the game.
I understand.
In Game 4.
I understand. So maybe I'm not giving them some credit they deserve, but I still think Golden State wins that. Back to Ant. People are trying to make Ant something he's not right now. Maybe Anthony Edwards. I'm not saying Ant's never going to be that guy. He's young. He's a young guy in the NBA. There's something about going to the playoffs, losing, licking your wounds, and coming back better. I mean, Jordan lost to the Pistons how many times? 3 times? So, listen, he's too young of a player to completely give up on. But right now, I'm talking about right now, people are trying to turn Ant something, turn him into something that he's not. And that's a big-time player in a big-time spot. Is Ant a top 10 player in the league? Sure. But is he going to be someone who puts the team over the edge like a LeBron, like a Steph, like the greats of the past? I'm not so sure about that right now.
He was my major problem with him. After that Game 4, in which he was he had 2 field goals attempted in the first half, and he shot 7 threes. He shot 13 total field goals. He had 5 turnovers, 6 assists. OKC, they blitzed him. They double-teamed him constantly. And he sort of played as a playmaker. He moved the ball. He tried to get his role players opportunities. And he never really got going offensively. First of all, OKC signing up for that. That's exactly what they want. Number 2, then he goes out post-game and says, he's like, I'm just trying to make the right play all night, because they asked him about, why aren't you being aggressive? He's like, I'm just trying to make the right play. I'm not trying to be aggressive there. They were shutting that part of my offensive game down. I'm trying to be aggressive. I mean, I'm trying to be a good teammate.
Right.
My problem with that is, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we can't spin that as a positive and then look to LeBron, who dealt with this for years, even into the early part of Cleveland, into the early part of Miami, and even in the first stint in Cleveland, where he was a little passive in a big spot, where LeBron was always the guy to make the right play, quote unquote, and he never heard the end of it. Never heard the end of it.
And Kyle, especially that Dallas Mavericks series, first year here in Miami.
Passive. And he wasn't great in the fourth quarter of that series, and it was excusatory. And people went after him. Jason Tatum gets this all the time. Jason Tatum, and the thing is, Jason Tatum wins. He could have a 17, 18-point game where he doesn't necessarily do a ton offensively, and they win, and that's a problem for Tatum. But if on the flip side, he's had games where he's had a 51-point Game 7 against Philadelphia, and it's sort of a back and forth. But Anthony Edwards, on this sense, can sit there and say, I was just trying to make the right play. Well, dude, we're paying you the max contract. You're 23 years old. You're the best player on the team. We're 4-1 in the postseason when you score over 30 points. We're 20-6 on the regular season when you score over 30 points. We're paying you and playing you to score. And you don't, or the OKC Thunder are shutting that down, and you're almost just playing into their hands.
But hang on, Kyle. He did this against Golden State. He had stinkers against Golden State. And I could argue he had stinkers against the Lakers as well.
That 0-11 game against the Lakers in that closeout game, he's erratic offensively.
That's why I said
you don't know what Anthony Edwards you are going to get offensively every game. That, to me, and he's young, so you could give it, all right. But this is the second conference final now where he has not played up to par. And this is a better team than they are. But he hasn't played up to par. You think if he had a 25-point game, that game would be the same?
No.
And their role players played great. You think if Anthony Edwards gave him a little bit of a boost offensively, they would have been okay? Yeah, probably. It'd be 2-2. So it's almost like he's not allowing them, he's not seizing the moment when other players are. That's my problem.
And Kyle, with the departure of Cat, they needed him to score a lot more this postseason. They needed him to be a scorer this postseason.
And Randall played terrible in Game 4.
And listen, I already said I might be in the wrong on this. And listen, if I am, 888-760-3776. But I go back to the Lakers not being the team we thought they were. Shame on us. And Golden State being without Curry. I think the Timberwolves have kind of been flying under that flag of, hey, we got here, but do we deserve it? I think the Thunder right now are exposing it.
You can't say they didn't deserve it because they won 2 playoff series, and they won 2 playoff series in 5 games. They were 10-2 coming into this series.
I blame the Lakers more. And listen, excuses.
Hold on, excuses. They were supposed to beat them, and they did. And they beat them in 5 games.
I blame the Lakers more, and I blame Curry being unavailable in a lot of these games.
How is that fair when the same thing happened last year, but they beat Denver in 7 games? They did it last year, so this seems tested. I know it was with Towns and not Randall, but it's the same makeup.
It's just different.
I don't think that's fair. Different. I don't think that's fair.
They need him to be that scorer. They need him to be that 35 point player. He's not that player right now. And he's 23.
He picks and chooses moments to be that player.
So 23. This isn't me writing. Please don't write right now. I'm not writing off Anthony Edwards. 23 years old. Guys have struggled and came back later on in their career. But at the 23 years old right now, it is the moment too big in some of these big spots. We'll see. He's a young player.
It's just
the young player.
You need to be more consistent with your offense. You can't get away with that. That's not going to cut it. No. Not as a max contract player, a 27-point per game scorer, somebody who they rely on in big spots in the postseason. I'm not saying he made the wrong plays. He should have shot contested shots. But 13 total shots and a passive first half is not going to cut it in a must-win game. You want to compare must-win games? Look at Indiana and look at Minnesota in Game 4.
Yeah.
And look how Halliburton did and look how Anthony Edwards did. So that shows you all you need to know. And he's young, but they were drafted in the same draft class.
And Ant's considered the superstar, and Halliburton is considered
forgotten about?
There you go.
About moments. Edwards hasn't had those moments.
Now Halliburton has had those 4-point playoff games, but the Pacers as a team are able to,
because that's not his game. He's not the scorer. Anthony Edwards is, we need you to score.
That and the Pacers are able to get ahead in series to where if Halliburton has a stinker, it's not the
and
worst
everybody
thing
has
ever.
bad games. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to have a bad game.
Not everyone is
how you play.
Not everyone is LeBron and Steph that'll score 25 to 30 points every single playoff
and they've also
game
had
in their prime.
They've had bad games too in the postseason. So it happens to everybody, but it's a matter of how you play. There are games when you're aggressive and games when you're not. You're almost getting force-fed this Anthony Edwards stuff. Play better in a bigger game, and then we'll get to him.
And you heard Finch, too, their head coach. What game, Kyle? Game 1 of this series? Remember, he kind of said, hey, we need him to be more aggressive in a post-game press conference. So I think his coach realizes that, which leads me to a question.
It was in the Warriors series, yeah.
Yep. Kyle, what do they need to do if they lose in 5? Is it get rid of Gobert and add maybe an instant offensive scorer?
I don't know if I'm ready to say what they need to change. I don't think we're there yet.
That's fine.
But the way I look at it is,
I don't think this team is constructed to win an NBA Finals right now if Anthony Edwards isn't going to go off for 30, 35
Well,
points.
that's it. He's 23. So that's your next step, is him to continue to develop.
Get him some help.
But that was not a good performance in a must-win environment over in Game 4. You got Game 5 tonight between the Thunder and the T-Wolves. We got a little Jonathan Zaslow. We'll talk about the Panthers.